I don't really play a whole lot of modern JRPGs anymore because I've played so many games in the past from like 20 years ago where the experience was so good, the bar was set so high that it feels like every game I've played since then, they fail to reach that bar and they fumble, they fall on their face in such spectacular fashion that it's kind of made me disinterested in playing so many modern games. And so that's why I go back and replay some of my old favorites, like I'm replaying Vagrant Story, and the first hour is so packed with so many wonderful, beautifully directed cutscenes that it makes me wonder, how have we regressed so far from this beautiful era, from a time where people didn't really know what they were doing, and yet they made magic work? The event director for Vagrant Story, this was his first 3D game. He'd never directed a 3D game before. He didn't really know how to go about doing this, so he referenced movies for camera work. He even went overboard and wound up adjusting it throughout the entire process because he was experimenting. He didn't know what he was doing. But the result is something that is so unmistakably unique. It's so wonderful watching a game that it feels like you're watching Broadway. You're watching a theater show. All the characters, they move around the environments, they chew the scenery, the camera has interesting framing, you've got unique angles, you've got interesting lighting, these wonderful visual tricks that make visual mediums so interesting that are neglected in so many modern games. And so it's got me thinking, we have Vagrant Story now as a reference. All the hard work had been put in 2.5 decades ago, and why isn't anybody referencing this? Why are we still using static camera angles that are just flipping back and forth between speakers? That's so boring, it puts me to sleep. I can't stomach playing a 60, 70, 80-hour game with such boring visual presentation. You need to take advantage of video games being a visual medium and make the camera work interesting. Because if you don't, then it's not any better than reading a book. Everything about Vagrant Story's cinematic presentation is stylized, and that's something that's neglected in so many modern games. I don't want to say it's dead because you do have companies like Atlas with Persona and Metaphor. They're still keeping that wonderful sense of style, and that's something that so many players appreciate and praise. And so you've got to wonder, if people love this style, why are so few developers willing to put in the effort? I feel no sense of love or passion from modern games. They don't have that drive to make something special. They just want to push something out there because they know we're gonna buy it. Well, not anymore. I'm very hesitant now to buy new releases because if they don't care, why should I? Like, look at Vagrant Story. The speech bubbles are stylized. You wouldn't get that from modern games. They're so content to just put a very flat, square text box at the bottom with some very safe, familiar font. Vagrant Story, it kind of clashes. You've got this comic book style presentation for the speech boxes, but you got this very dark, pseudo blend of Japanese and Western art direction for the character models, this kind of gothic architecture in the background. You've got Shakespearean infused dialogue, and so all of this, they all combine into something that's so wholly unique. You can't mistake Vagrant Story for any other game. Pause it at any moment of the experience, and it's unmistakably Vagrant Story. That's so special. I can't get that kind of experience with modern games, not even from the same company. See, with Vagrant Story, there was a deliberate decision to not use full motion video or CG cutscenes outside of the little 30-second introduction. Everything else is rendered in-engine, and when you have that approach, you design your game in a different way. You can't just rely on designing the gameplay and all the cutscenes in isolation. They need to meld together because the cutscenes seamlessly blend into the gameplay. And even to get that to work, there's like movie magic going on behind the scenes because the programmer is loading the environments during all of these event scenes. So you don't have that awkward interruption between gameplay and story. The entire experience is very smooth. And all the while you're looking at such fantastic framing for these scenes. The camera is not static. There's a lot of movement in this game, and there's a lot of effort in blocking out each scene. Again, that comes from being inspired by films. Films use so many more creative camera techniques than video games. And it's like if video games want to copy movies so fervently, then copy them. Don't be boring. Try to do something interesting. Have the characters move around. Have the camera show you unconventional angles. Move it down. Show me a ground view. Show me an aerial view. Maybe occlude the action with parts of the environment, and you slowly move it to reveal something that you didn't expect. That's what makes each scene interesting to watch. And if you show me something interesting in the environment in the cutscene, then I know where to go in the gameplay. You don't need to guide me with waypoints or objective markers. Just by paying attention to the story, I know what I need to do. You don't need to bloat the screen with disgusting UI elements showing me arrows, showing me little reminders, text bubbles saying, hey, this is what you need to do, this is where you need to go. If you have something that's presented well to begin with, you don't need to patch in these issues that arise because you neglected that. So a good example of what I'm talking about is after you fight this first boss, Sydney appears and he jumps in the air, and you can see a chest in the background. The game is teaching you indirectly, there's no tutorial here. Just by watching the cutscene, you're shown the importance of looking through your environments, checking out the higher areas and the dark corners for treasure. This is proof that you don't need arrows or waypoints to guide a player through your environments. You can use the camera, you can use the story. This is the importance of telling a game through in-engine rather than through CG cutscenes, because you can do interesting gameplay things like this, like showing the player how to play the game without directly telling him how to play it. It doesn't belittle you, you feel a little smarter because you notice something interesting all on your own. And that sense of readability is present during the cutscenes too, because you've got this wonderful rim lighting that illuminates the edges of the characters when they're near a light source. Ashley and Callow, their faces light up when the manor is set on fire, but it doesn't show you that it's being set on fire at first. That happens in the background, but you see that initial burst through their faces. It's so beautiful. The lighting in this game is just so stunning, and it's all handmade. None of this is ray traced or done with some sort of algorithm. It's all deliberate. You got characters sitting in a dark room, and then lightning flashes illuminating dark figures hiding in the background. You've got two characters congregating in a room, and only the edges of their outline are illuminated. And then the camera cuts to this low angle view and you've got a corpse in the foreground and this mysterious character just barely lit up in the background. Such a wonderful, mysterious atmosphere, and it's all done with camera and lighting. In fact, these two elements alone are all you need to set the scene. I'm not going to give you any context here, but you can see this character running for some gates. It's nighttime, the camera is frantically zooming in from above, and then it turns and pans to this imposing castle. Flash of lightning and the camera slowly lowers. The character appears in frame, and you see this towering monstrosity before you. You know exactly what your objective is. You know exactly what the tone of the scene is, and did anyone say anything? Was there any narration? Was there any dialogue boxes? It's all done through visual storytelling. Beautiful imagery is all you need to make a wonderful story. You don't need to have your character say, I need to sneak in somehow, I gotta sneak past these guards. Why would you tell me that? Why would you have the character narrate that? Instead, through camera work, you can show a character walking into a building, pan out, you see some guards patrolling in front, and your character is crouched behind some boxes, and then a little object falls down. Oops, you made some noise, the guards start coming towards you. No words are uttered, and yet you know what you need to do. You know what this scene is about. You don't need to play the game. You know. There's so much artistry put into the framing of each scene. You can see a character through a crack in the door. You're looking right at him head on. The camera pans to the side just a bit and your character's got a crossbow aimed right at him. You've got a tracking shot as he approaches, it's just slowly following alongside him, and you've got these objects in the foreground that block his lower body. You don't even see him toss the rope at the villain. You just see it appear at his feet like that. He tossed it off screen. And the brilliance, look at this, the camera lowers, you can see the sword, you know something's gonna happen, he's gonna make a move. You don't need to have this narrated, you just see, you can see it coming. You can predict the action that's happening here, just from the camera. Here's another example of that framing that I was talking about. You can see Ashley lying on the floor here, and the camera pans up a bit and the villain has a sword, he swings it down. You don't need to see everyone walk into frame. You can have these surprise elements. It gives you like, oh, it's a little startle. That's what makes it so fun to watch these scenes. Like, I'm having fun playing the game, but so many games, when your stories, when they're presented in boring cutscenes, I'm not having fun during the cutscenes. Sure, the story can be interesting and the dialogue can be well written, but you need to have that visual candy. I want to have something to chew on when I'm watching these scenes. Make it fun. It's a game. I don't know what it is with game developers. Why are they the only visual medium that doesn't really care about the visual aspect of storytelling? You don't see this with TV shows, you don't see this with movies, even from Japan. Like, do you see this in anime? Look at manga. Even manga, a piece of paper does a better job at framing the action, framing the conversations. Only in games do you see such widespread laziness. Like, I know that sounds mean to call these devs lazy, but I'm playing a game because I want to have fun. And it just is not fun to watch characters talking. Do something interesting with that talking. In Vagrant Story, characters aren't just standing around talking, they're moving, they're looking at the environment. You don't feel disconnected from the world. When characters just stand talking at each other, and you can move them in any environment. You can have them outside, you can have them indoors, you can have them on a space station, you can have them in a car. If you can change their location and it doesn't really affect what they're saying or what they're doing, then it doesn't matter. In this game, a character will say, hey, is this really the only way in? And they'll be like, well, look at the sea. They've tried taking that route before, but it's impassable. There's whirlpools, and the camera will pan, and you'll see the water as it blockades the distance between you and the city. The things they're saying make sense given the context of their location. Check this out. You can see a character in the foreground and his companion comes down the steps in the background, and he's shouting across this enormous room because his text bubble is not connected that close to him. It's kind of spaced far apart, so you can hear he's shouting it. There's no voice acting in this game, and yet you can tell the tone of the voice just from the presentation of the speech boxes. And when I say use the environment, that doesn't necessarily mean, you have to break it apart or pick up objects, but look how Ashley is leaning up against this wall. He's eavesdropping, the characters can't see him. You can't even see him at first until the camera slowly pans down. You can see he's been listening in on the conversation this whole time. The cutscenes, they show you how to get through a room before you actually have control of the character. Ashley comes in, and you can see these characters are up on a ledge, there's a moving stone. If you look carefully, you can see a treasure chest in the background. You know a little bit of how to maneuver through this environment before you're finally given control. And when you are given control, it's just a smooth transition between cutscene to gameplay, and you're right into it right then and there. It's paced so well. I've covered this subject numerous times, so I won't get into it too much here. But games that focus on storytelling just as much, if not more than gameplay, should have a steady rhythm to the experience. You can't let cutscenes drag, and you can't have large gaps between cutscenes. You need a balance of both. Everything in Vagrant Story is broken into rooms, and for the most part, the camera works within that room. So, perhaps by necessity, the cutscenes are usually brief. They're a single scene and not a collection of scenes. And due to the effort involved in the cinematography, which this game definitely earns that title, you can't drag a scene in one area for too long without running out of new angles and different movement techniques. It's like move along, we've got new areas to explore, and we can do interesting interactions in those rooms instead of gluing ourselves to the floor in this one spot. And it's taking every ounce of willpower to stay focused on this subject of cutscene direction and not talk about every other facet of art design that's just incredible with this game. I just want to gush about every part of it. It's got such a unique art direction where the faces, they're basically sprites overlaid on top of polygons. It gives them texture and expression, and the camera shows off these expressions. That's why there's so many close-up shots. Even in games on the PS1 like Metal Gear Solid 1, as much praise as it gets for its direction, it didn't have this kind of detail. Few games from this era had this kind of expressive detail, and keep in mind, all of this fits on a single disc. This is a full-blown 20-hour RPG, and the PSN version of this game, it's under 100 megabytes. That is some voodoo magic. That makes a believer out of me that magic is real. The fact that you can get this game to take up such a minute amount of space is just, it's impossible. When you work with limitations, you wind up devising creative solutions to the problems that you encounter. That's why Metroid Other M, it doesn't use the nunchuck. You point the camera at the screen to aim missiles in first person, and then you play with the Wiimote oriented sideways for everything else. It didn't really work, but I admire the decision to ignore using the nunchuck as a way to inspire a new control scheme. Innovation is important, but execution matters too. That's why the fact that this game manages to pull off this blend between pixel art and 3D polygons, it's not just that it feels fresh, it's that it's done well. You need to have, they go hand in hand. You need to have good ideas, and you need to be able to incorporate those ideas in a way that works. I think I've given the impression that I'm someone that dislikes JRPGs since I've made so many videos criticizing them, and I think I've waited too long to explain myself here. And I love that I've taken the time to finally show why I'm so critical of this genre. Ordinary experiences just don't cut it anymore. I want extraordinary. It's one thing to say I've put forth my best effort possible and I'm stopping here. And it's another thing for a dev to say, well, every other game does it like this, so that's good enough for me. That's not the mentality of a passionate developer. I don't want video games to be this filler in my life, something to pass the time so I don't succumb to boredom. I want video games, every single one I play, to be special. And you see, Vagrant Story is elevated by its story. It's made better because of its cutscenes, because of the dialogue, the unraveling of its mysteries. This would be half the game it is without its story. And for games like Persona 3, 4, and 5, I get the impression that I'm better off watching the cutscenes on YouTube than playing the game. And I have played through these games, all of them, the entire way through, and I still believe that the optimal experience is to just watch someone else play it, or watch a collection of the cutscenes on YouTube. The gameplay is not elevated by the story. You've got huge chunks, like 5 hours plus segments, of just dungeon crawling. And that gets to be very exhausting after a while, like you just want to see what's happening with the plot. You're enduring the gameplay to get to the next story section, and then sometimes the story lasts for like 2 hours of just non-stop barrage of cutscenes, and you start to miss the gameplay. Without that balance between both, it just doesn't feel like a cohesive experience. But with Vagrant Story, because everything is so intertwined, I don't get that same kind of reaction to its story. I'm not crawling through catacombs for like 6-hour stretches. The game is more story heavy for the first 2 hours and it gradually eases up as you progress because it remembers that it's also a game. It has all of those nice gameplay elements that keep you addicted and keep you playing and longing for more, but it also remembers that this is an RPG. A significant draw is its story, so it doesn't keep you longing for it, it peppers it throughout the experience. You're never left starving for the next plot point. I love that I said I wasn't going to talk about pacing in games, and I wound up talking about pacing for like 4 minutes, and now this is just turning into a review of Vagrant Story, but that's how it goes when I talk about something that I'm really passionate about. I really love this game, and if you've never given it a try, I think it's worth giving a shot, especially if you're the type of person that appreciates good cinematography, if you pay attention to the way that scenes are framed, if you like that kind of thing, if you don't just like characters standing around yippity-yapping about God knows what. If you want something a little bit more mature with the presentation, Vagrant Story fulfills that niche. It shouldn't be a niche, it should be the standard, but I'm not so unreasonable as to expect the whole industry to turn on its head overnight and be like, you know what? This random person on the internet is right. We've been doing this wrong the whole time. Let's change our ways and try to make games more visually stimulating. That's not gonna happen, and I don't expect it to happen, and at this point, I've accepted that, and I'm so happy to just replay my favorites. I'm so happy that I have Vagrant Story in my life, that whenever I just get that taste for something that's done so well, I want that perfectly cooked meal. It's sitting right there just waiting for me. It's like people give so much credit to Kojima. He's the guy. If you want a movie game, like he understands film. He knows how to frame the scenes. He knows how to move the camera along. So it's like you're watching a movie, a big budget blockbuster flick. But Vagrant Story just does it so much better, and it's not even close. Maybe that's just me, but if you don't believe me, it takes about 5 seconds to download this game, and I highly recommend it. If you got nothing better to do for your upcoming weekend, instead of spending $70 on Pokemon or whatever the hell else is coming out this year, maybe try out this one-of-a-kind classic. Because if nothing else, I guarantee you're not gonna find any other game quite like this.